right, welcome to AI FISEC today. It's a podcast where we're embarking on a thrilling journey into the intersection of artificial intelligence and the physical security industry. Very excited for our guest today, Mr. Tim Lindblom. He is the Executive Vice President at Gulf Coast Software. And the topic he's going to talk to us about today is AI weapons detection, notification, and lockdown protocols for active shooters. Tim, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks. Good to be here.
We're excited to have you. Why don't you give the audience just a brief background on yourself, and we'll start from there.
Sure. So we founded our company in 2001, and we have been for the last 22 years incorporating a variety of devices with physical security platforms. We work with all the major video surveillance platforms worldwide. And so we have a long history of engaging external devices with digital video surveillance platforms.
That's awesome. That sounds super interesting. A lot of retail restaurant companies could certainly benefit from that.
Yeah, we do find that there's been we primarily started out in the hospitality and the retail business, but what we found over the years as end users and operators begin to leverage their video surveillance platforms, we see ourselves more fully engaged in supply chain, warehousing, public spaces, ports of entry. As well as retail and hospitality end users as well. So we're really starting to see after a long time kind of promoting and advocating for the further leveraging of video platforms. We're really starting to see a lot of end users recognizing that video platforms are far more valuable than just providing physical safety and security to their operations.
Nice. So, Tim, tell us what's one fun thing about you you'd like the audience to know.
Well, many of you probably know this from attending conferences and shows with me, but I spent 7 years as an opera singer, and I come from a background of the performing arts. My father was a conductor, and so I've spent many, many years writing and performing both on stage and music, and so I'm known once in a while to cork open a good song, whether that's a good Irish song or an opera song or something a little bit more popular, depending on the crowd I'm surrounded by. But I think it livens up things, and it gives me an opportunity to just kind of let my guard down and let folks know that despite all the things of business and the other things that I love to have a good time. I really enjoy working in the industry that I work in, and but I get a little bit off the sort of C-suite mentality. Quite often, I'm kind of known as a guy that doesn't stick too closely to that sort of rigid format. So just like to have a good time, like to have fun, and like to really build great relationships with folks that we're engaged with and have been over the past couple of decades.
I personally heard Tim sing, and it's absolutely amazing. So if you're at a trade show, maybe he'll sing for you if you're special enough. So Tim, let's dive right in. Right. So the topic of today: AI weapons detection, notification, and lockdown protocols for active shooters. There's a lot to unpack there. Very interesting topic. So kick us off, and we'll go from there.
Well, I think that it really is an interesting and a challenging approach to AI. Typically what you see, at least today, in terms of AI, is the highly evolved generative AI that may be running an Amazon store in New York. Things that take a tremendous amount of investment, and but generally these tools involve, at least as far as ChatGPT and other things that we're used to seeing now, they usually involve, a highly evolved set of databases and algorithms and knowledge base that process, a request and then generate a result for that request. You hear a lot about copyright infringement. You hear a lot about, how easy it is to write a paper if you just generate, what you're looking for and it spits it out. And I think, combining AI with physical security is a little bit more of a daunting task, and primarily due to the wide variety of devices that are engaged, and things like uptime, connectivity, and so forth. So the prospect of utilizing AI to enhance physical security really engages, accessing a number of devices as well as video systems and video analytics, and sort of combining those within the AI platform in real time, and utilizing that information to discern whether or not there is an active threat. And then, sort of to reverse that, you have outputs, which are essentially, instructions or commands to some of those very same platforms to actually engage physical security components to protect human life in those environments. So, where typically AI is really well defined and it's in a closed environment, if you are to engage, for example, in a school environment, you have surveillance systems, you have video analytics, you have manual panic triggers, access control devices, shooter detection systems. And all of those devices really are designed to operate independently. They're not really designed to speak to one another, to provide information that is actionable and that actually can be engaged and utilized to control the same devices. So, as an example, if we see, we have the technology now, both with newer video systems, but also there's some military-grade analytics that can be used with legacy systems that can identify a long gun being carried to a facility. And with the utilization of visual video analytics, what we call Synergy Visual AI at Gulf Coast, we're able to identify that device and then process that image through an AI platform where we identify that firearm. Now, you can also, in many cases, identify a handgun that's carried openly, and some of the more advanced solutions actually give the ability to discern, a concealed weapon or the change in someone's gait because they're carrying a weapon underneath a long coat or something of that nature. And in identifying those, that event or a similar event, like if someone has a panic button because they see this person walking across a parking lot, we're able to process that information and then engage the other physical security devices that are deployed in that space. So as an example, if we see a long gun, of course, we have to analyze the physical space that we're involved in, how many points of entry there are. Are those points of entry hardened? Is the glass bulletproof? What are the escape routes, and so forth. But engaging that information and then engaging access control really gives us the ability to lock down a building before the threat is able to access the property. Obviously, every environment is different. If you have an environment where there's not hardened, that's not a hardened environment where there's glass doors, we still have the opportunity to lock that property down. So if an active shooter were to discharge their firearm to break the window, to break the glass, they still have to gain access into the building by climbing through a broken window and then, pursuing individuals within the location. And I think that most of us understand that the goal of any system, as imperfect or as polished as it may be, is to create awareness within a facility, as well as to create distance between an active shooter and his potential or her potential victims. And so, if you any awareness that you can create, by utilizing these types of tools, give individuals a chance to flee. They give individuals a chance to put distance between themselves and a potential shooter, and they give themselves the opportunity to escape or to secure cover, which is all critical in protecting life in the event of an active shooter scenario.
I was at a event this week, and the FBI. I don't know if I don't really consider him an agent, but he does all of the active shooter training in the Southeast. And and I've been around. I mean, been around the industry enough where I've seen a lot of this topic come up. But he mentioned a lot of emotional situations that these people are in, and how they go back to their childhood instincts, and how important training is, for people, because the technology, while it could be proactive in some ways, they have to still be able to fight on their own, because on average it could take 3 minutes for an officer to show up to help. So for 3 minutes they're on their own. But I do think that's where technology would come in, and to give some sense of awareness, like you're saying, within immediately, and letting
Well, I think
the facility know. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think that's an excellent point. One of the things that we tend to, focus on in our industry is what is the technology and what can the technology do. But of course, in these types of situations, you have a number of components that combine to create an optimal situation where there is chaos. And understanding the environment, the human elements that are involved, the physical characteristics of the facility. Any active shooter program, and that includes training. It includes exit strategies, creating distance and cover and secure refuge for individuals is very, very important.
Hmm.
But I think that as we progress through analyzing, those facilities, and as we design these systems, obviously the first thing you have to start with is what is the physical platform, or what is the physical environment in which you're operating. The second is, of course, engaging individuals within that organization and training. So whether that be managers in a QSR restaurant environment, or whether that would be a service officer at a school, or teachers or others, having them fully understand, what technology is available and how to utilize that technology, regardless of the scope of the tech that's deployed, is extremely important. One of the things that we've been exploring lately is the ability to provide tracking for a shooter once they enter and are inside of a facility. And so, with the technology that's available to recognize both faces as well as clothing and long guns, firearms, and other things, providing visual cues to potential victims as they escape is also very important. One of the things that we saw in Parkland was the lack of the ability to understand where the shooter was in real time. And, AI can provide response teams with accurate information regarding where an individual is. Video systems can track that individual throughout the facility. But we can also push that information out to visual cues, such as green light, red light, right? This is a safe place to flee, and this is an unsafe direction with which to flee. So there are so many different technologies available out there. And again, the real key issue, particularly in physical security, as I'm sure you well know, Don, is, uptime, reliability, security of the network, connectivity between these devices. Because if we don't have secure networks that are both reliable as well as confidential in terms of the general populace, you don't want someone to know how to flip the switch and turn these devices off as they enter, a property. But if these devices don't effectively talk to one another, then you're out of luck. If you can't send a picture to the cell phone of a resource officer so they know what the individual looks like that they're pursuing, or to response teams who are approaching an active shooter event, then you've really lost a tremendous advantage. And if you cannot help direct potential victims to safe areas or cover or secure rooms, then you're in trouble. If you don't have a bulletproof glass in a classroom, well, obviously you need to find cover that is secure. If you do, in many cases, you can just lock down your classroom and you're going to prevent that active shooter from engaging. So, budgets are also important. We see real reluctance on part of many school districts to utilize funds, and some that are provided, by federal grants and others, to engage in hardening their schools. Those funds tend to rest in educational programs and others, which are very, very important. But there really is a tremendous amount of opportunity for us, I think, to be far more proactive in developing solutions in our industry. I think we've been lacking, particularly in the surveillance industry. There's a lot of analytics that are available. We don't see, I don't see at least a real concerted effort to bring device manufacturers such as access control, motion sensing, alarm systems, mobile alarm systems, video surveillance, and a lot of the video surveillance and analytics that are available out there, remarkably, seem to work well even on older analog systems, or with maybe one or two high quality IP cameras deployed into the space. So I'd like to see a far more aggressive approach by our industry to engage and to work to build bridges between technology providers, surveillance providers, and operators out there, whether it's a school or whether it is a mall or a retail shop or a QSR restaurant. I think we have the resources now that we've never had in the past to really engage and integrate and provide far better solutions to protecting human life. And as we know, we're in the business of video surveillance. We're always talking about loss prevention and asset protection and operational efficiency and all those things. But we really have no higher purpose in our industry, in my view, than protecting human life and protecting individuals who may be under threat. So I'd like to see that occur. I'd like to see there be, it's interesting that the conferences that I attend, and I attend multiple conferences as you do, throughout the year, we seem to always have a good, robust discussion about active shooters. We have multiple speakers. We have many experts in risk management who come and share, their experiences and what they're trying to do to help to mitigate the risk moving forward. But we don't seem to have conferences and forums that are designed specifically to leverage our technologies in the physical security space and really create a new wave of solutions that will really help us to protect human life in these types of occurrences.
Let me I want to backtrack a little bit on something you said. So you mentioned before about you said facial recognition, but let's just call it identification of some sort, right? Or I think of AI as an opportunity to understand behaviors of students, activity of students, maybe identifying who the student is. From your experience in working with these solutions within schools, like, what's been the challenge of balancing privacy and safety and security for you? Do the schools care much? Are they, there's not much of a balance, or what's been the temperature there for you that you've seen?
Well, that's a great question, and I really think that it's a mixed bag. I think you have, some schools where they have done a fantastic job of identifying at-risk, students, because again, many of these individuals are very troubled, and it's fairly obvious to a number of individuals, perhaps within the school and the organization. We're having a hard time right now, even dealing with bullying, which is something that goes back to my childhood, which is eons ago. So how do we raise the level of awareness and the level of engagement? But it seems to me that one of the things that AI can do, and one of the things that we are not doing a very good job with now, is most of these events, as we look at them in the rearview mirror, seem to present a lot of red flags that are just missed. And so, as we look at social media platforms, and as we look at chat rooms and other forums, I think we always find, as we look backwards, a real propensity for these individuals to have, put out either posts or comments or responses or videos or images that really would indicate that there are some issues that need to be addressed and resolved. And I don't see, this is another point of frustration for me, is I look at these social media platforms. They seem to have unlimited resources, and then so the question arises in my mind, why have we not created algorithms that will identify and flag this type of behavior, where we can notify law enforcement, where we can engage parents, where we can engage teachers, and try to reach these kids before things get to such a critical level.
Yeah, I really like where you took that, because it's not physical security, it's not protecting, it's not on an asset, but it is a security issue. And it's one that's where it starts. A lot of youth start by expressing themselves online and by different mechanisms, whether it's Facebook, TikTok, whatever they're using, Snapchat. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a good point, because I mean, when it's surprising that there isn't anything right now. Now I feel like after this podcast, I need to search for it because, or we should make it, Tim, and then we can have something to help,
There
right?
you go.
Uh, but but yeah, I mean, because I feel like that's when analyzing the behavior and saying certain cues of behavior that could trigger before they even get to campus. Because once they get to campus, it's too late. I mean, and kids can take it in different forms. Like one of the things that the active shooter guy was talking about is that, so active shooting, according to him, maybe his perspective around the Southeast, I don't know if it's in North America, but for schools has somewhat gone down, but not like a drastic amount. But what has gone up is school violence. So stabbings have increased, right? So while they're maybe not gun related, the violence has continued to increase. And so, yeah, if it's not a shooter situation where it's heavy lockdown, I just need to understand the behavior or the mentality or mental health, right, of my students before it gets to that point. And that's absolutely something that AI can help with at scale, because no one person can analyze that. It's impossible. And one thing that I'm super interested in is this new wave of generative AI and how it can create new understandings at scale. And it's already a large language model, so it's already combing the internet. I mean, with all the sources that these people are going to, who knows? Maybe they're even going to the dark web to reflect, right, on how they feel. That seems like the best path. That seems like that's now. While again, it's not necessarily like a physical security thing, it absolutely is something I feel like people should be paying attention to. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you going there. I think that was a good point, Dave.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that one of the things that dovetails into what you just said is, these social media companies have a pretty good understanding, as we are now developing a much better understanding of what is a good amount of social media interaction and what is not. But I think that, again, at scale, as you mentioned, I think it's an excellent point that we should be able to comb through these posts, data, and find, key indicators, key metrics that point to something, and it may not only prevent, the school shootings and this violence that you're talking about, but it gives us a chance to get a window also into mental health, right? So, you can take a group of young people and you can expose them all to social media at the same level, and half of them will have a pretty healthy relationship with social media. They'll put their phone down, they'll go outside, they'll do things and engage the world. I think I read a statistic the other day that 73% of our time 100 years ago was spent outdoors, and now we're at about 3 to 4%. So the how does that affect individuals? How does that affect human beings? And how do we identify kids who are really in that danger zone? So again, it's a little bit off the physical security and active shooter discussion, but I think those things tend to feed that high risk behavior, and create that environment where an individual doesn't have anyone reach out to them, doesn't have anyone come and physically engage them and help them. And it also can create accountability with parents. I mean, one of the things that we saw in the shooting, I think in Oakland County in Michigan, was that this young man, was clearly troubled. It was clearly something that the parents were aware of, and yet they made a firearm available to him, and what happened, right? Tragedy ensued. So I think there's a lot more that we can do. I think as a culture and a society, I am encouraged because the very nature of our business now, the physical security business, the surveillance business, has gone from sort of nuts and bolts, tape recording, to software, to engaging broader and broader data sets. And so I see the mixture of the technology that we're engaging, and the physical and visual security components that are being delivered in technology today, as becoming more and more complementary. And I see that as a good thing. But again, we have to have the will, both as a society and a culture, as well as an industry, to say that this is a priority for us. It may not have the greatest return on investment from a financial perspective for businesses or corporations to engage. But I think culturally, and in terms of our humanity, and in terms of our respect and protecting life, human life, it's essential. And as we become sort of more and more disconnected, as we saw through the COVID years, a lot of mental health issues, a lot of difficulties, and those I think continue to reside within the psyches of a lot of Americans, and many of us are struggling to make our way out of that. And so, as a culture and as a society, we're into a bit of a new age, and we need to make sure that the technologies that we're engaging in are addressing those issues. And of course, as physical security is now becoming ubiquitous, right? I mean, go to London and try to find a camera, a block that isn't covered by surveillance. And obviously, it can't, Big Brother can't sit and watch us all, but we can utilize these analytics. We can utilize this AI, I think, to really identify metrics and things that will help us to gain insight into these tragic events. And I think, hopefully, with the will, we're going to be able to really create some mitigating solutions as we move forward.
Yeah, and I'm really, when you decided to come up with this topic, I was really happy about that, because I feel like it's something that it has to be on every single parent's mind, or grandparent if you have children, about this. And it's something that security professionals are forced to think about, as those parents are, because they probably feel a sense of responsibility in helping, as does manufacturers, as does security specifiers, what have you. And so, I'm curious to see, like, what the next step is, right? I mean, what's the next, maybe, like you said, maybe the next thing is they have to come up with some kind of AI software that combs the activity to people. But in your mind, what do you think the next advancement in this space would be, if you had to imagine it, beyond what
Well, I
maybe
really
we talked
think,
about?
again, that having been in device and data integration with video for 20 years, I don't think there's any question that the core functionality, again, the core functionality of AI is what, right? Making decisions and moving those decisions, gathering information and generating actionable intelligence, and then acting on that, right? So, if we look at simple applications like, identifying firearms or providing alarm systems an opportunity to lock down facilities, those in conjunction with education, where are safe rooms, right? Any QSR can have, an office as a safe room, right? With bulletproof glass. How do we manage those things? How do we create time? Time for escape, time to flee, time to find cover. And, so we may not have the perfect solution, right? We may not have something that can neutralize a threat, or, there are going to be doors perhaps where access control is not functioning, and we have those things to overcome. But I think in its simplest form, we have the ability to combine multiple data points, to push those data points into an AI platform, to analyze those data points, and then to create action that will help secure lives. I think that each environment, of course, is very unique and very different, and that's where expertise is really going to have to take the lead in designing intelligent programs. Because if you design an excellent program, but there's no real education with the end user with which to utilize it, then you have difficulty. So, analyzing the facility, understanding how hardened it is, understanding how the threat might evolve, and understanding the best way to protect life. There are really good opportunities now with the technologies that we have, with access control, with video analytics, and so on. So, hopefully those things will be deployed, as a means, a first step, I should say, in the right direction. And then as the awareness grows, as perhaps some of these events are thwarted, and we're able to see the tangible results of these types of integrations and these types of collaborations between, physical security, video surveillance, and AI. We'll see some momentum grow, and I would love to see, these mega companies, the Amazons of the world, the Googles of the world, the Microsofts of the world, come forward and say, no, we have the means to participate in this process. And I think, it's up to us. I think in the physical security world, it's up to those of us who have a vision to this end, to keep this out in front of folks, and to perhaps engage more fully, those large entities that have the resources, that have the technology, to use generative AI to create a safer environment. I think as corporate citizens, it's their obligation and it's our obligation to do everything we can in this realm. So hopefully we'll see that, and hopefully that'll be the momentum that we can begin to see as we move forward in our industry.
Well said, Tim. So, Tim, we have 3 minutes left. So tell the audience something you're working on that you're excited about, and where they can find you.
Right. So, I took a bit of a leave to care for my folks, and I was able to really turn my attention to Gulf Coast Children's Charitable Foundation. So, I'm excited about everything that we're doing in the security and the what we call synergy visual AI and space. But I really am passionate about utilizing my good fortune to benefit kids. So we're really looking to utilize AI, video analytics, and data analytics to support efforts to curb human trafficking, and really to help protect kids. And so that's kind of my goal for the next decade, is to focus in on that. But of course, to pay those bills, Gulf Coast Software Solutions is our vehicle, and we're really doing a lot to do multi-device integration in the retail space, in a whole range of manner. And so Gulf Coast Software Solutions .com and Gulf Coast Children's Charitable Foundation.com. Real easy way to track us down and to engage us. And appreciate the opportunity to sit with you today, because I think this is all very important stuff and a great topic. So thanks so much for having me on your podcast, Don.